Good morning. Thank you all for your patience. We're still trying to get on the stream. So give me a second. All right, I think we are functioning now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our or my first Principal Coffee virtual. Looking for so we do have someone from I didn't mean to do that. The Family Engagement Office with us. And then we are going to, let me unhide everything. 1 second. Be nice if it just was a function that did all of it. So I'm getting everything set up to go. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. So we have someone from the Family Engagement Office. Dr. Harper is here to talk about our 8th grade activities. And then we have a couple other things to discuss. So let us begin. You can see the slide deck, I presume. Everything's good on that front.
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. So again, we're going to make sure we continue to update everyone on our attendance, enrollment, discipline data. Those were the big 3 buckets that everyone has been asking for engagement in. We will talk about our math data. I haven't had an opportunity to discuss that. We will also someone from Family Engagement, and we'll discuss the end of year 8th grade activities. I have a couple people in that are co-hosts, so please feel free to ask them, post in chat or raise your hand or anything so we can, unmute and have dialogue. So it doesn't all have to be through chat, it just has to be in an organized fashion. So our enrollment and its data, our enrollment right now, or as of last night, or 1:42 this morning, we have 1,085 students enrolled. And our attendance data, what the state will be looking at, we're at 90.7%. This point fluctuates very often. Our average daily attendance is 95.5%. We are trending better than we were last year. And we want that to continue in that way because we all know that the students learn more when they are here and engaged in the learning activities. So we want or we aim to keep this CCRPI attendance data around where it is. And I say that as we are coming up on our breaks for Thanksgiving and for the winter holidays. So attendance does matter. The state does count it. So please be mindful of that. Our discipline data, as you can see, we're trending better than we were last year. Of course, this is end of year data for 2020, 2023, 24. And this is current data through this moment in time in 24-25. So 91.4% of our students have not had any incidents. And these are any infractions. So it can be minor to major, but that is how we're trending. I actually do not have my chat up, so somebody would have to tell me if there are any questions. Oh, I don't know what I just pressed.
No questions in the chat right now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Moore. I do know what I got out the slideshow. All right. Continuing on with our math end of grade data. So what you have here is trend data by grade level at the bottom, and at the top is our overall for all grades 6 through 8, because every student has to take an end of grade assessment in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. We are trending positively. We did meet our expectations of increasing by 3%. We actually increased by 5.7%, I think, overall, or 5.6% overall. And we also increased the percentages in distinguished. So I'm going to let you all mute over this data for a second. If anyone has any questions, this has been discussed at the Go Team meeting, but we have not had an opportunity to discuss it at the principal coffee. So I'll give a couple minutes if anyone wants to ask any questions. So seeing none, no one got off mute. And this isn't new information. We got this around the end of September. So we are very excited about what we've done over the past year to improve. And you can see that 8th grade, we're not quite where we were in 2022. That was a really good year. And unfortunately, the baseline year for how the state is tracking us. But overall, we have trended positively and improved since then. This is our algebra data, which is very exciting. As you can see, we are trending in a positive direction, and we've exceeded where we were in 2022. And I want to say we actually have the highest percentage for distinguished in Howard's history. I'm not sure about Emmons, but 92% were distinguished on Algebra 1 milestones. So as you can see, we're trending higher than the district, even though that wasn't our goal, but we're trending higher than the district, and we're trending higher than we were personally. All right, so we wanted to, there's been a lot of questions. So I'm sure people are gonna come off mute or have chat for this. Wanted to give a general expectations as it comes to unit assessments and unit planning. There is an article here that discusses this as well. There's some conversation, or has been some conversation, around curbing of assessments. And I wanted to make sure that we are aware that a teacher curbing, or if it's going to be curved, the group of teachers curbing an assessment is not abnormal. Most assessments are curved, from the milestones to, the MCATs. And so this article discussed reasons why assessments may be curved. And then we wanted to talk about kind of the different types of assessments. The formative assessments are the things that you're doing as you're progressing to the end of the unit to adjust your instruction. So that is kind of the impetus behind us allowing the retakes and things of that nature. This kind of gives you an idea of what the teachers are kind of expected to do, and the cadence for which teachers move through assessment or unit planning. There has been discussion, yes, it is best practices to have some kind of structured assessment or quiz prior to the end of unit, but I want to also make sure we understand that you can assess someone's learning by other means than just a quiz. So it is not out of line for teachers to, or misaligned for teachers to use other means to assess. And so we gave some examples in the third bullet. And then we wanted to also kind of bring your attention to this Open Records Act, which allows us to kind of hold tight on not distributing assessment questions if we're going to be using those questions repeatedly. That does not mean that if you want to see or view the assessments that we can't figure out how you can. It just means that we really don't want a subset of questions to be distributed and being utilized within the community if we're going to be using those questions over and over again. It has been also brought to our attention about the grade inflation. So that is a way for grades to be inflated if we have questions and answer keys circulating around in our community that only certain populations can get access to. So I'm going to pause here to see if there are any questions.
No questions in the chat.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
So when the curve question, topic about the curve, I think maybe some of the questions is if what, do they curve as, do all the teachers in a grade or topic decide to curve, or do some teachers curves and others don't? Like if one teacher does in, say, social studies for 8th grade, would they all choose to do it, or is it up to the individual teachers?
Yes, it is a decision made as a group.
Okay. And then
So, however, the assessments are graded, there is some norming that occurs in that PLC meeting, that team meeting, and whatever decision is made across all classes for that content and that grade level.
And then something that I have always wondered about, and I know that there's been changes in how APS does their unit testing. It seems like previously when they were benchmarks, they were not always counted for grades. They were like unweighted grades, and I see that still happening, maybe not across the board, but in some of my high school son's class. Can you talk a little bit about how how they maybe previously were unweighted, now they are, or what we may be misunderstanding about that?
There's been a lot of change over the last, let's say, post-pandemic, right? Initially, there were benchmarks and teacher-created or school-based created unit assessments. And then the benchmarks would come from the district. So the benchmarks would happen 2 or 3 times a year. Now, around when Dr. Herring came to the district, they shifted from these benchmarks to giving end of unit assessments. And so I can't speak to what happened here, but I can speak to what happened at Midtown. When we were there, we decided, well, if we're saying that we're testing kids too much, then you can't give the district unit assessment and then a teacher-based unit assessment because they're all at the same time at the end of the unit. So that is when teachers shifted from that. I do know that there is a assessment task force that's being created by Dr. Johnson now to discuss the quality or quantity of testing that is being dictated by the district versus what needs to happen in the classroom. So that is an ongoing discussion. I do know that when we first were kind of given more of the optional ability this year or more autonomy with the unit assessments, we decided in certain PLCs to grade it one way and in other PLCs, they kept it the same. And so that's why you see in some classes, it's like 1% versus it counting as the unit test. That class that is counting it as 1%, they are giving additional tests. So it's like pluses and minuses to it. The teachers do feel like when you don't count it as a test, the kids don't take it as seriously and don't apply themselves as with as much intentionality. And so that's kind of the impetus behind why certain teams, and I'll let it be a team-based decision, counts it more as the grade versus not as the grade. If you do count it as not as the grade, then you still have to create another unit assessment.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind, if I can ask one more question and I'll stop so other people have a chance. With the assessment task force, from your perspective, what would you, out of all the different types of systems that you've seen, what was before Dr. Herring came during Dr. Herring, and what you've seen now, what would you like to see happen? Or if you're comfortable sharing that.
I actually preferred what we had under Karstoffen, where it was a benchmark, where because I do like the idea of a whole tight, this interim assessment that we can gauge ourselves on, that we don't have input on. I think that we had less disgruntled people when we were just doing our own unit assessments. However, under Karstoffen, when we had our own unit assessments, we also had a test bank. And so the district has not purchased a test bank in years. And so saying that the teachers can just come up with a question, what I do not want is teachers saying, what year was the United States founded, right? And that being a test question when that's not a standard for secondary. Yes, that is important information, but what are we doing with that information? And so when you're allowing people to create questions without having a test bank, with that, it just creates opportunities for less rigorous questions. In addition to the fact that people who write assessments, that's a whole industry. They've been trained on it. They understand the nuances. They've done research. It's nuances that go along with that if you're going to create a great test. And that is not saying that a teacher can't, that's just not their expertise. And so we're acting that like, it's almost like saying, I want my general practitioner to give me information on how to handle a case, cancer diagnosis and give surgery and make a plan. While they might understand things about cancer, you will feel more comfortable going to an oncologist or somebody that specializes in that work. And so that's kind of, to me, if you want to know Hollis's opinion, where we can kind of do a better job collectively.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question. I was wondering if you could just kind of summarize a little bit of history, like teachers couldn't see tests, or there's confusion around teachers couldn't see tests and now they can, and they couldn't edit them and maybe now they can, and just maybe speak to that to kind of squash general confusion that might be out there.
So at the beginning of the year in July, we were given the option of opting into unit assessments without any warning that that was going to occur. And when I say warning, like I said, there takes planning to go into that, planning that allows the school to create protocols as to how we want to implement this. So because it was at the same time which we were also starting school, we did not focus on that. We focused on making a welcoming environment to bring the kids into school. So at that time, we were told that we'll be able to see the assessments and then it's optional. Well, in reality, the teachers could not. And so the teachers could not actually see the assessment outside of the testing window until fall break. Prior to then, and that was abnormal because in prior years we could see. So we don't know what happened. We do know that unit assessments were moved under a different department this year as well, with Dr. Johnson coming on. And so, we don't know why, because we work at the school, as to why those changes were. But once we settled in, I had conversations with the teachers to decide how did we want to move forward as a school. Once we came to the conclusion that we're not completely happy with all the questions that's on the assessment, not unhappy because they're not aligned to the standards, but maybe the language might be a higher lexile than what the grade level of the student is being tested on. So like saying in a question, it might say, Keisha was compensated for blah, 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 blah. Well, does everybody know what compensate means? Or it was kind of like those nuances where you can say Keisha was paid for. And so that would just change the whole question, but then change the question as far as the standards as being addressed. So we were seeing some issues with that because we couldn't see them until the test was given. That created some issues there. And so once we determined that that was an issue, we started lifting it. I was going back and forth with testing department to tell them when we were able to see and what we can't see. So it took to October, honestly, for us to be able to see all of the unit assessments for all core content. And by that time, we had decided to utilize a hybrid version. So use that test as a test bank, pick the questions we want to keep, and then create questions that we don't, to get to a number of questions that's going to be on that assessment that will be able to give us insight into whether or not there's mastery. So that happened during the fall break. The teachers were concerned with the transition, which all of the transition has been a concern, just timing. And same thing happened, honestly, last year when we switched from doing all Amplify and math to doing a combination hybrid. We had to have some kind of a launch pad so people can kind of get used to or make adjustments to their planning to be able to accommodate that change. And so there were some assessments that were coming up right after fall break that the teachers did not have enough time to course correct. But now, after that assessment ended, they should be doing the modified version. I hope that was a good enough answer to that question. Any additional questions? All right, so the next order of business is teacher absences and substitutes. Most times we do have a substitute in a class. It is not something that we send out to parents unless it's like long-term, meaning FMLA approved, that kind of thing. And the discussion of whether or not the teacher did the protocol or followed the protocol, that is more of an HR management situation that I will not legally go into. But what I will say is this: when we have teachers that are absent, we do either, I mean, most times we have a substitute. Every once in a while, we have to split a class. And I say every once in a while, I think we've split classes this school year twice. The teacher is supposed to leave assignments, either paper assignments or on Schoology, and the students are expected to use those resources to complete the work during that time. If we are noticing that the teacher is not coming back in a timely fashion, please understand that we care about the child getting mastery and learning as well. So we have people to stop into that class to check in on the students, provide mini lessons, make sure that the assignment is appropriate. And we've always had the stance that the students can attend any teacher's tutorial on that grade level in that subject area. So that is kind of how we approach teacher absences and substitutes. I will pause for questions.
Nothing in the chat.
All right, so upcoming assessments. Next week, we're going to have our AMP Up equity survey. We have sent out multiple announcements if you want to opt out of this survey. This is like the third year that the district has done this survey with the students, and it doesn't take that long. And it is internal, meaning district internal. This is not the Georgia Health Survey, which we are getting more information about that next month. And then that is the one that we'll send out links because parents have to do it as well. And so we'll give more information hopefully in January around that. We will be having our winter map testing right after the Thanksgiving break. So please, please, please come back from your holiday break on time. And remember to do the things that you were taught in elementary school about make sure they have breakfast and go to sleep on time and all those things as we engage into that winter map assessment window. That gives us a gauge as to whether or not how much course correction we need to do in order to meet our goals for this year around summative assessments and how well we're performing up until this point. Right score is going to be at the next week. I think that's the very next week. And then first semester final exams are 16th through the 19th. You can find those explicit dates of what content area and per day on the calendar, the school's calendar, if I'm not mistaken. Any questions around assessment dates?
Nothing in the chat.
Awesome. All right, family engagement.
Thanks, Principal Hollis. Can y'all hear me okay? I had some audio issues earlier. Okay, I see a head nod. Thanks, Allison. Good morning. I am Crystal from the Office of Family Engagement. I serve down at CLL in the central office. I'm a part of a team of 7, and we support you, families, and all of our schools and their partnership and practices with families. First, let me say Happy Family Engagement Month. If you didn't know, November is your month. It's National Family Engagement Month is recognized across schools in the state of Georgia, and Atlanta Public Schools honors it as well as a celebration of family partnership, family diversity, cultural awareness, and just celebrating the partnerships that our schools have with all of the parents, caregivers, family members across Atlanta. So I won't be before you long, but I just wanted to share a little bit about our team, the Office of Family Engagement, and then give you all a chance, if you will indulge me a little bit, with just hearing some of your thoughts around family partnership and what that looks like, feels like, sounds like at Howard. Um, really quickly, the Office of Family Engagement, like I said, we support the partnerships between schools, educators, and families. And we define family engagement as building genuine relationships. We're really big on that relationship between a student's caregiver and the educator. Um, and that's where our office really tries to build up good strategies and best practice and really be a cheerleader for the partnership and the relationship that you all have with your child's teacher. Oh, thank you. I'm sitting here clicking like, why isn't it moving? I forgot it's not my screen. Thanks, Principal Hollis. Before we get into a little bit of discussion, I wanted to share this with you. And I try to share this graph as much as possible because it resonated with me when I saw it. So this is a year at a glance, assuming, we have most schools, if not all schools, are on a typical 180-day calendar. So out of that 180 days and out of an entire calendar year, this is the percentage of time that students are in school, away from school, and sleep. So I'll let y'all look at it just for a second and take a few minutes and then let me know, like, what are some initial thoughts? You can either drop it in the chat or if you want to come off mute, that's fine.
It doesn't feel like that as a parent.
At 100%.
And I made sure I put my stories because I questioned it too. I was like, who researched this? It is from Academic Parent Teacher Teams. They're a partner of APS. They're based out of, I always forget, is it Phoenix? I want to say it's Phoenix, somewhere in the West. But Dr. Maria Paredes, she's one of the pioneers in family engagement. And so her research team, they put a lot into it, and I've heard it, I've seen it in other places, but never just at a percentage. But you're right, it definitely does not feel like that, even throughout a school day, because the school day is what, about 7 hours. But when you think about it, the amount of time, and this isn't even taking out sleep. So sleep is just 33% of the time, but 55% when you count in breaks, you count in the summer, those few moments that you get with them in the morning, and it seems like you only got a few moments in the evenings. But all of that added up is more than half of your child's life is spent away from school, out of the classroom. Any other initial thought? Let me see.
Yeah.
Angie says this does not accurately capture time spent on the 12 plus apps and portals we have to use. Smiley face.
So I'm sorry,
ahead.
are you going to
Go ahead.
respond to that or so yeah, I think that that's part of it, right? I think we all know how much time that, yeah, sure, they're in the building, but it just feels that our entire lives are structured around getting them to or from schools, supporting them in their schools. Yeah, it just, I've said this before in other situations, just and teachers, students, parents, everybody's burning out with whatever is we're doing right now, feels like. That's why I think, sure, we can look at that and if we think about it rationally, it's 12%, but that doesn't include the lift that it takes. I feel like with the way things are in schools now, it's not a Howard or an APS, it's a systemic. So that's, yeah, it's exhausting and shocking to see those numbers.
And is it Lisa? Thank you, Lisa. And you spoke to somebody on my team with their same sentiment, is that within that 12%, is so crucial, but it also speaks to the extension of learning that occurs, that we kind of don't think about, but that's what goes on in that 55%. Like your students, not your students, your kids are learning, when they're with you, when whatever structured activities you may have them in, like home learning is so important, but then also we got to take into account like life experiences and how that shapes their academic journey. But it definitely caused pause um, when I show it to teachers, when I show it to leaders, and then when I show it to parents. When I saw it myself as a parent, and my child, he's only in pre-K, but it just seems like he's away from me so much. But then it's like, okay, well, the 55%, how am I impacting his educational journey, whether he's physically with me or when he's in his activities, when he's on a soccer field, like what is it that, how am I adding to his enrichment? Any other initial thoughts? Okay, you can click for me. Okay, so here's where we'll kind of sit for a little bit. My main purpose of me being here today was just to kind of hear, like I said, you all's thoughts and your experiences as a parent, caregiver, family member of a Howard student and around family engagement. So these 6 pillars are what not just my team, but what we hold the standard that we hold the district to as far as core values and best practices for family engagement. We're really big on foundationally, really big on building relational trust. And like I said, it's great for you all to have relationships with the school as a whole. I take it a bit further and I ask families, what is your relationship with your child's teacher? And I even said this to Principal Hollis a few weeks ago that myself and even though Principal Hollis is the leader of the school, being able to speak to what's going on in Miss Jones' Algebra 2 class or what's going on in English Lit, like having that direct path to your child's teacher is so important, and hopefully it's built on trust. We preach 360-degree communication. I'm sure some families say, APS, we communicate too much and sometimes not enough. But then the next layer is, do you have an opportunity to communicate back to your child's school or to the teacher? So that 360 the communication loop, we rest upon academic partnering, and that's ensuring that our families are provided with tools, tips, resources to support what's going on in the classroom. Like I said, what goes on in that 55% of the time that they're out of school, whether they're with you or not, how can I as a parent help my child? And we expect for our schools to be able to provide some of those helpful tips and resources to families through academic partnering. Customer service. We are in the business of educating children, and so just making sure that all of our schools serve as welcoming environments for all families and all community members. Authenticity and transparency. Setting realistic expectations, and when possible, providing full disclosure to all of our families. And then finally, community connection and collaboration. Peer-to-peer, family-to-family networks are so important, whether it's PTO, Go Team, the local HOA or the MPU, or just families who are friends with each other. Just making sure that there's strong familiar bonds between our families, and then mobilizing and taking advantage of those organized partnerships. So with that said, which of these, if any of them, resonate with you, if you consider your experience this year or over the last 2 or 3 years that you may have been, your child has been at Howard, which of these kind of resonate with you? I saw something.
So I'll
Oh, go ahead.
visualize that. I think that Howard has definitely been a wonderful and welcoming environment, and it's definitely hitting most, if not all, of these categories. Our staff and our administration are awesome and fantastic. So I just want to say that to preface it, but I do know that there is some concern in the community with regard to engagement, especially around math. And so I know I am also a Go Team member, so I should say that. And let me take myself off so you guys can see me. I'm also one of your Go Team members, but I know there's been some concern around math and this just the structure in the classroom. And I'm certain that parents would love an opportunity to figure out how to build better relationships and partnerships in that subject area.
Thanks. Is it Shalonda?
Yep.
Thanks, Shalonda. And if you all don't mind, you don't have to say your child's name, but if you can say, what grade, it just helps me with like context. But what grade is your student?
I have a 7th grader and an 8th grader.
7th grade, 8th grade. Okay, thank you for that call out. And that's something that we've actually heard almost from every single, especially middle school family is more engagement around math. And I was going to ask you to kind of explain what engagement looks like to you, and you kind of spoke on it. What I think I heard was co-design and that you didn't say the word partnership, but something that I think that the district there's an opportunity for is to have groups of parents across all middle schools, especially to be able to speak to their experience as a parent of a student who maybe is having some challenges with math, and not necessarily academically, but just understanding the new concepts. So that's something that I've taken back and will bring back to our teaching and learning department to see if there's some opportunity to be able to ask for parents to come on a team and maybe co-design and spark that conversation. I saw another hand. Is that Lisa? Go ahead.
Yes. So I agree with Shalonda. I feel very engaged in the school. And I feel for the most part, except for the things that are on social media, I feel like I know what's going on, but social media aside, I still know that I know what's going on because I'm not on the parent pages, but I still feel like I know the important things. One thing that I think all schools could use, and I'm on the board of the Council for In-Town Neighborhoods and Schools, and we just had a discussion about communication. And we had talked about how it would be nice to see from family engagement or APS best practices on how different schools have reached communities that tend to be less engaged. And one thing that was brought up, we have several college level teachers, academics on our board. And one thing that was brought up recently is that most of the school communications reflect how white parents communicate, with less focus on methods of communication that might reach more broadly when there are diverse schools. And I'm not sure, since most of us here, at least on this call, who are at all the meetings, we have flexibility and time, and these methods work for us. But there might be other methods of communication that we could talk about, and how to truly engage a larger part of our community that we don't see, that not because they're not interested, but this method of communication and this method of outreach is just not working for them. So I would love to see more of that from APS. And it's not necessarily a problem that the schools can solve, because they're not that they're not communicators, they're not trained communicators necessarily. They're teaching and they're focused on academics. But for people who are in that role and with their expertise, I'd love to see more of that shared with the schools and with the PTO arm that does the communications for the schools.
Lisa, my degree is in social work. So the strategy that you're speaking of is not just a communication strategy, but it's also a pillar within social work, and we refer to it as like meeting people where they are. And it's not anything that we social workers own, but it's just this kind of what I heard is being able to meet people where they are. And sometimes it's not necessarily just physically, but through communication channels that resonate more with certain communities than others. And I can say those conversations happen in pockets. And this kind of speaks to Allison's question, like what exactly is family engagement doing? Things are happening in pockets. And it's like sometimes it's how you move the needle, but it's not how the general population is able to see it, to be able to contribute to it. And when I say pockets, I mean literally having conversations with a group of Howard families at 10:30 on a Friday, and then have another conversation with a group of Sutton families and young middle school families. And so you all don't know, who I spoke to yesterday or who the team is speaking to right this second. And so I think that there's opportunity to be able to, one, do a better job of meeting folks where they are, and taking the time to not assume that we know what's best, but asking, once again, asking families. I'm really big on asking the audience for the answer and not assuming the answer. So that's something that I continue to lift up and will lift up. To the good thing is I get to just walk down the hall and talk to the communications team and say, hey, I spoke to a group of families. Go figure. They are saying some of the same things that we're saying in these staff meetings, but are we doing a good job if it's not resonating with folks? So, doing a better job of meeting folks where they are with our messaging. And then to Allison's point in the chat, like, what is family engagement? Like, what does that look like? It's a lot of strategy work. Um, there is somewhat of a misconception is that it's more um um like meeting family need. There's some of that in our team. Just yesterday I got a call about a homeless family. So there is some of it is meeting family need, but the bulk of our work as a team, like I said, I'm a part of a team of 7. We work with schools, school leaders, school staff, teachers, and parent liaisons, to strengthen their best practices with reaching you all families, because a team of 7 cannot unfortunately touch every family. However, if we are touching every school and working with them and say, who are your folks that are family facing? How are you building up the relationships between your teachers and families and having intentional conversations around that? Our hope is that we can, by extension, reach every family. So it's not as family facing as the name sometimes um, can make it seem. We do host some um, uh, public engagement opportunities, which I'll share in just a second. You all may have come to our family learning nights. We had 2, and it was actually as a result of a parent from Howard asking for more engagement around math. And so we had family math nights last year. This year, it conflicted a lot with, since we have a new superintendent and there's a lot of community engagement. We weren't able to bring back the series, but I'm hoping now that his 100 days is almost up, we can bring that back in the second semester, where we have family learning nights and we ask families what topics would you all like us to engage around. And math was a major call out last year because of a parent from Howard. Hopefully that answers a little bit of your question, Al. Oh, got a lot more questions. I'm sorry. Um, sorry, let me read. So you've heard that everyone wants engagement. Is anything planned? Last year, PD was doing special engagement sessions. But I don't remember the venue.
Yeah, I think the general sentiment is,
Oh, okay, there you are. Thank you.
yes, I like there's a whole office for engagement. I mean, I have twin 7th graders, and maybe I'm just like kind of blocking out, but like what engagement sessions have there been? Like PTO last year and Go Team, we had sessions, and specifically for math, we've had things come up this year. I just don't see it. I don't feel like there's been a lot of engagement that I know I could tell someone, yeah, this is the Office of Family Engagement. This is what they do. Like I don't really think I understand. Like-
So, in hopefully I'm not sounding like too much of a broken record. Like, there's two major opportunities. Is one, we support and really champion for school staff to be able to have better relationships, stronger relationships with families. And so a lot of our time is spent like working with grade level meetings, working in leadership team meetings within schools. And then the other, I can't say half and half, but the other bulk of time is spent engaging with families when we are either hosting something like those family learning nights. But what I'm hearing is there's an opportunity that to be either invited or asked to be invited to like a Go Team meeting or a PTO meeting, to have a conversation specifically about family engagement. And if is that kind of what you're saying, that you haven't seen that, and so there's possibly opportunity for that to happen
And we are having her come to the office, the family future, come to the next Go Team meeting.
on the
I
12th, right?
also, yes, and
Yeah.
I also want to add to Lisa's point, it is difficult to engage in all the various family engagement desires or needs um, based on socioeconomic needs, demographic needs, that kind of stuff. But what I do find that since I've been here and we've been doing more of recording and live streaming, we do have more families that say, I didn't come to the meeting, but I did watch the meeting later. So I do think that, we are trying to do things, or like at our Rising Rams night, we have had interpreters there so that the Spanish speaking families do feel invited and welcome. But it is difficult to meet everyone's needs and still have a work-life balance for the people that, work at the school as well. But I do want to point out, we have done some things to kind of address that too.
And I'm gonna take well, I already took it because I gave the example to a principal last week. What Principal Hollis did with my team, she reached out to us, said, hey, is anyone available to come to our next Go Team meeting? And we come to the first one as an extension of the Go Team office. They ask us to kind of come and help get Go Teams started, but the conversation is never up until now has never been specific to family engagement. So if that's something that we can kind of maybe even offer just as a just a menu to say, to all of our Go Teams, hey, if you are ever interested, invite a member of the Office of Family Engagement. We would love to connect with you by allowing us to come and help facilitate a conversation on family engagement and what that looks like at your school. That's something that we can shoot out quite easily to all of the Go Team members. We do work with the cluster advisory teams as well, so we can shoot it out through that communication channel, and then also our PTAs and
Yes.
PTOs sharing it there as well.
So I'll just point out that one of the things that our community was interested in was a math advisory committee. And so if you could give us some help and guidance around how we might get the families engaged, as well as our teachers and administrators in that aspect, I think that would be specific to what was asked in our community.
Can you, Shalana, can you expound on what that looks like, and then what the goal would be for the advisory committee, or more so the goal?
Maybe some other parents can, because that was one of the, our students we have subgroups of students who don't perform well in math, that as a Go Team, we are attempting to address that strategically. But the main concerns that I was hearing was with regard to our students in some of our accelerated classrooms. So I'm not clear what the ultimate goal would be, other than getting families involved in the conversation and maybe having a voice and an opportunity to gather their thoughts and make suggestions. So I don't want to, if there's someone else who has a more clear understanding of what a goal of that would be, I would certainly appreciate if you jump in. But I know that was something that was of particular concern, was having a math advisory committee so that parents would have the opportunity to engage and we could collect information and concerns in one place.
And maybe that is the starting goal, is just to get the conversation started, and having a space where families feel safe and free to do so. That could be the initial goal right there. If anybody else wants to add on to what Shalonda said, please do.
So I was one of the parents that had suggested it as, or brought up how it was used, an advisory committee was used at Morningside. for the Go Team. The Go Team used to have a standing family engagement advisory committee. Oh, and yeah, Deanna's on the team. She said she would like to speak, and I'm gonna defer to her.
Hey, Dion.
Hey, so I brought forth from the community that there was, I'm a Go Team member. There was an ask to have engagement. One of the topics was math. It was across all, from what I saw, all levels. And then it expanded after more and more tests were taken at the beginning of the semester to just engagement overall. The proposal that I brought to the Go Team was initially a math advisory committee, which we are allowed to have advisory committees. We spoke about that. The motion ended up being an engagement committee, and that was voted down. So that is the summary that I know it. And I believe you're coming to the next Go Team meeting. You were on the agenda at the last one, but I think that it would be great to speak about this. I think the Felt team, we've had one the last couple years as an engaged parent. I've heard very little about that. When the meetings are, the meeting notes, the meeting minutes, I don't think that combination is working at Howard for us. That's why I was proposing the engagement committee for our community. And the meeting minutes for that are in our first two meetings if you wanted to look over that. But I think, as you said, starting a conversation is really important, and all working together is really important. So that's where we are right now.
The next Go-See meeting, is this one open? Is it a public meeting or is this a closed meeting?
You can't have closed Go Team meetings. They're all open to the public. But I will
I guess
say that
comment. I'm sorry.
All of our meetings have open public comment.
Okay, sorry.
yes, the challenge with that is I do appreciate you are actually on here speaking, and I'm going to let other parents speak if they would like to, because in a Go Team meeting, you know, parents are limited, or non-Go Team members are limited to 2 minutes. And there is no back and forth conversations allowed. So I'm gonna put myself on mute here, and I would love to hear from the community and your conversations with them, because that's hard in a Go Team meeting. It's not a place that we can have the back and forth like we can in this venue.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my question was going, without trying to spark too much, but I do understand just the and that's where like the authenticity and transparency, like Port Pillar, comes into place. Just the desire to be able to you know, speak freely, respectfully, without time constraints and Robert's Rule of Orders and whatnot, which, you know, love, but a time and a place, and that could be the power of an advisory subcommittee. I understand that there's already, like Deanna, you just kind of spoke to where it was came to a vote and voted down. I don't know if there's opportunity to maybe pitch it again, maybe in a different way. So it originated as you called for a math advisory, and then it came up as maybe a family engagement is what it morphed into. But what I'm hearing is we just really want to be intentional with talking about math. And family engagement is so broad. So we can talk about that a little bit more, hopefully at that 12th meeting. And then I'm sure I'll be able to debrief with Principal Hollis and give her some of my feedback as well. But I'm collecting all of you all's information and sharing it so I can share via notes as well. But if anybody else wants to speak specifically to this topic, please do. Oh, somebody said the 19th. Is it the 19th or the 12th? I don't want to put the wrong date out there.
Right now, it is on our calendar for the 19th. However,
19th, I'm sorry.
we have another event happening on the 19th. So I will send a message to the Go Team to see what we're going to do about that.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
And I'll share my email in the chat so y'all can slide me in there too.
I think an engagement session would be great. There was a lot of concern in the community, not a lot of concern, but there was a lot of discussions about math, and then it morphed into other topics. And then there was questions about testing, and there's just confusion, and it would be a great space to be able to ask questions and clarify. And it was unfortunate that we couldn't get that advisory committee, but there's definitely a need in the community for engagement. And it didn't, I'm the president of the PTO. It didn't really feel like it was we hosted a session last year, but that's not really what the PTO would do. Like, I mean, there's a whole office for family engagement. So it seems like this is the place.
And
Yeah.
I wrote what you said. You said that earlier, Allison. I wrote down squash general confusion. And so you said it again, just okay, what is that general confusion?
Yeah.
And maybe we can squash it in less formal ways, because it doesn't just have to be, the formal GOTY meeting or even the PTO meeting. To what Lisa said earlier, like meeting families where they are, and you all meeting each other where you are. And so that's something that myself and my team can possibly help you with, even if it's just me having a conversation with the board members and providing some strategies around, there I go with that word, strategy, but providing some tips and best practices to say, okay, where's everybody else? Where are the other families? Because it was 22 of us on the call, about 4 of us are APS staff members. So where are the other families, and what is the best way to be able to get some of their feedback? It might not be at the GOTY meeting. It might not, because I'm just gonna hopefully safely assume that some of these same faces, maybe some of the same faces that are at your PTO and your Go team, maybe not. But regardless, there's hundreds of other families that are in your Howard community. How can we get some of their feedback, or just keep them in the know? Some of them may be having shared experiences, but they never have an opportunity to attend a session like this, but have maybe something worthwhile to say. My husband never attends anything, but he has the best ideas. But it's just work schedule is different from mine. So how do you capture, him, and some of his thoughts and hopes and dreams for our child's educational experience? So I'm definitely open to meeting with maybe the board members of each of those entities, PTO and Go Team, either collectively or however what works best for you all, in addition to coming to like the formal meeting, because I think there's opportunity to catch people in the informal ways. And I'm sure the school would welcome you all support and ideas with doing so, because you can only send but so many robocalls and take home folders and meeting folks in the drive-through, the parent pickup lane. But where do you all convene in, and how can we, have that 360-degree communication in those settings as well?
And I
Okay,
just wanted to
I
say
like to
that
talk, so tell me
people
to shut up anytime.
people do share emails. We've gotten emails from community members as Go Team members. That's been helpful. So they are reaching out in other ways. I'm sure probably some other parent leaders and Principal Hollis and the principals, I'm sure, get emails as well. So I appreciate anybody who can hop on, sharing, and it doesn't need to be in person if they're not comfortable with that. But, emailing the Go Team, giving us input so we can help have thoughtful conversation is greatly appreciated.
And I'm really big on like making things personal and working together. And so and I've asked this of my own child's school, like having the teachers send out a special invitation. Hey, the PTA is, because we have PTA, so the PTA is about to have an upcoming meeting. Like, they would really love for you to attend, and letting that invitation come from the teachers, so that way more families, because you all may not have a means of sending out a mass email or text to everybody. But if every teacher is being really intentional of saying, of one, increasing the awareness of Go Team and PTA and PTO, and so that families can know to come. I know that resonates with me. When Miss Arrington texts me and say, "Hey, well, no, she'll say, 'Hey, Emmanuel's mom, please come, or this is coming up. And so, working with the teachers in that regard, if that's an opportunity there, just an idea. Okay, she moved my slide, so let me hurry up. This is the last slide, but this is just ways to engage. The Office of Family Engagement does exist. We are here. We're small but mighty. And they're just as spirited as I try to be. But feel free to send me an email or call me. And I don't know if this slide deck is being shared, but the very first QR code was to our website. She said yes. Okay, so you all have this information. Two last things, shameless plug. Like I said, November is Family Engagement Month. So if you don't hear about it any other time, hopefully you've seen some things in the month of November. If you can take an opportunity to take the annual Family Engagement Survey. Hopefully it went out earlier this week, but if not, there it is in the middle. That first QR code is to the survey, and this is for you to measure engagement practices at Howard Middle. And there's a few district questions, but a majority of it is your experience as a parent of a Howard Middle School student. And that data I'm big on accountability. And so that's something that we share with principals to say, hey, this is what your families are saying about their experience as families at your school. What are the opportunities there? I love that you all started with positivity, saying that things are going great across the board. And then also taking a deeper dive into what are those engagement opportunities. And then the last one is November 16th is the annual Family Engagement Conference. It is going to be at Tuskegee Airmen Global Academy. That is a Saturday. It's a great way for families to connect across Atlanta. It's open to all families, whether they are an APS family or not. But we have a lot of sessions. One session in particular is around supporting students with math, because like I said, that was a major call out within the last 2 years. But once you go on that website, you'll see the list of opportunities. There's even sessions for students. One of them is a student-led session. Scholastic called us yesterday and said Clifford the Big Red Dog is coming, so my child is excited. But if you all would love to join us on Saturday the 16th, bring a friend, and yeah, we would just love to come and fellowship and have fun with all of our families. There were some things in the chat. If I missed it, I will go back and I'll respond to you directly. I'm so sorry. But thank you, Principal Hollis. I'll stop now.
No, thank you. As Ms. Elduri said, we wanted to have an opportunity for parents to actually give comments and speak back and forth about their concerns and desires, and Go Team is not necessarily the place where that happens. So thank you for agreeing to be with us twice in 1 month. End of year 8th grade activities, Dr. Harper.
Yes, good morning, everyone. We met with students, our 8th grade students, around October 25th to go ahead and share our traditional end of year activities with them. So I just kind of want to share some things with parents. All right, so if you have already received that form from either your scholar or by email, please check to make sure you're getting emails from me. If not, it could mean that we don't have an email on file, or it could mean that your settings are set to not receive emails from the school. Either way, we want to get that corrected, because most of the information that I send out will be via IC Messenger or the 8th grade reminder. All right, we do want to go ahead and get those slips back by November 22nd. Payment is not required at that time, but we do need to go ahead and start planning, and we need to know which students prefer Plan A versus Plan B so that we can appropriately plan to make sure students have everything. So we do offer 2 plans. Plan A includes the Six Flags trip. We always buy the plan that includes transportation, that includes lunch. Transportation is a separate cost, but it is embedded in the $135. So with the Six Flags admission, it's not a regular day to Six Flags. It's a physics day to Six Flags. So you have to be with a school group to go. So students are not able to use their season passes to go to Six Flags. We do purchase the lunch, which is all you can eat. They do give us a designated time to do lunch. It's usually about a 30-minute window, but they don't really pressure students if they stay beyond that 30 minutes. It also includes the lunch that goes along with the picnic or the equivalent of our field day. It includes the 8th grade dance refreshments, celebration breakfast, and a class t-shirt. Plan B includes everything except the Six Flags trip. And so as you are making payments, please be mindful that there is a platform fee. That money does not come to the school. So don't be alarmed if you see when you go in to make payment that it says something other than 135 or other than 58. We do need all of the money to be paid by April the 4th. For those that are participating, we do have to, it takes money to plan the activities. It takes money. We got to pay deposits. We got to, reserve things. And so basically after April the 4th, if we don't make a payment to Six Flags by the 5th, we run the risk of not getting the tickets back in time for them to go. So that is a very hard deadline, April 4th. Don't worry, parents. I send lots of reminders over the course of the year. As we get closer to the time, we are going to make phone calls, advisory teachers, and we're going to start pulling students in to make sure that we know exactly what they plan to do. Next slide. All right, I wanted to show you kind of what School Cash Online looks like. And so we are taking donations for students that may be in need. And thank you so much. We have already received quite a few donations, and we've already had parents to go on in and make a payment. I do want to specify that there are 2 different links that's embedded in the document that I gave you. There is one link that's the actual 8th grade fee link, and then there's another link that's the donation link. Please, when you're paying 8th grade fees, make sure to put your student's full name as it is listed in Infinite Campus. They should not, please don't use a nickname, and please don't put your name, because we've had problems in the past identifying the students to make sure that the money is applied to their account. If you're doing donations, you don't really have to put a name in there. If you want to, you can. Also, when you go on that platform, there's a little bitty button that says myself or who are you paying for. If you leave that button clicked on, it's going to automatically put your name in. So make sure you take that button off so we know who the money is being applied to. Next slide. All right. So I wanted to go ahead and give you all a few dates. So the Six Flags trip is on May 16th. This year, we are doing something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. Normally, we leave Six Flags about 2:30 and we head back. So from 2:30 when we meet to get to the bus, it usually gets us there. We were like, it just takes a while, about 3:15, and then we're heading back so that we can be back in time for the buses. This year, we wanted to give students a little bit more time to engage in Six Flags. So we are actually going to leave the park at 4 o'clock. Which means that the students will arrive back to school after a school has ended for the day. And so parents would have to agree, or guardians or siblings or relatives would have to agree to pick a student up from Howard at 5 o'clock. In questioning a number of parents, no one seemed to think that this would be a problem, but if you believe that it would be, please send me an email so that we can start looking at it and making adjustments if we feel that that needs to be the case. The 8th grade dance is on May the 20th. So it is a dance. Uh-oh, what happened? Okay, I'm sorry. It is a dance. It's not a prom. So students can choose to dress up, but they are not required to dress up. There's no dress code. So it's, we've had every year we have students that say, well, I'm not coming because I can't come in jeans and a t-shirt. You absolutely can come in jeans and a t-shirt to the dance. It is perfectly fine. May the 20th, the day of the dance, students are allowed to check out of school, but they have to come to school that day. They actually have a B-Day they have a B-Day connections final on that day. So at the earliest they can check out would be somewhere around 11:30. But they have to come to school that day to be able to participate in the dance. The next activity we're going to have is our movie day or indoor activity. So students will get to choose the movie that they would like to participate in. We offer a lot of different opportunities or movies that students prefer to see. They will go to a classroom of where that movie is showing, and we normally do popcorn and snacks for students on that day. They normally do 2 movies, so our schedule is a little bit different because in the past, the movie day was also the same day as the dance. So most kids did a movie and then they checked out, but we moved some things around a little bit. So on the day of the movie day, we also are going to have rehearsals for the actual awards program, and that schedule is going to come out to parents a little bit later. May the 23rd is our field day and picnic. It does come with a catered lunch, so it would be the equivalent of when we go outside and do all of our activities. And then the 28th is the 8th grade celebration. Thank you. On the 28th is the 8th grade celebration and breakfast. So we do always have a catered breakfast on that day. If parents would like to check their students out after the program, they are allowed to do so. So this is the one time that I do ask students to follow a dress code. I do ask students to dress for a formal recognition program because it's an awards program that is set up and presented like an actual graduation. So we do want students to dress the part for that actual event. Afterwards, if parents want to check their students out, they are allowed to do so. We typically have our celebration at about 11 o'clock. If you are a parent that wants to make plans for your scholar after that time, I would not make any plans before 1:30, because even though we try our best to keep our program down to about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half, the process after the program for checkout, we've been fine-tuning for a number of years, but honestly, we haven't quite hit it where we can get kids out of there in 15 to 20 minutes. It just takes us a long time. So we are still working on that. But please know, if you are going to make reservations for lunch or anything along that time, I would not suggest making anything prior to 1:30. And do I have any other slides? I should have a criteria slide. And then once I'm done, I will go through the chat.
Okay, because I was going to say there was a question about the dance date. It says, why is the 8th grade dance the same week as final exams versus say May 27th, the night before the 8th grade ceremony?
We decided to stretch things out a little bit this year. And so May the 20th was the day that we selected to do the dance. All right, so all students have to meet criteria for participation. And so we start what we call our active activity period in February. So that begins on February the 24th. So from February the 24th until we begin our activities, students could be ineligible to participate if they violate basically anything in the code of conduct. So if they receive an out-of-school suspension or an ODR, 2 or more detentions or ISS, or for love notices, it could possibly make them ineligible to participate in 1 or more of the 8th grade activities. Unfortunately, by this time, money has already been spent. And so if a student loses an opportunity to participate in 1 or more activities, there is no way that we will be able to give a refund for that. We don't have many students to lose activities, but I have to say we have had students to lose activities, but it's not a lot of students. We have a wonderful class this year, so I do not anticipate that this will be a problem for us. They are doing wonderful so far this year. We are already using love notices. We've used love notices for a number of years. A love notice is a level 1 violation. It's really just an opportunity for a student to think about their behavior. We haven't even had many students to get a lot of love notices. But level 1 violations is something like violating the cell phone policy, being tardy to class, having your book bag on and you're not supposed to. And so we engage in conversations with students about these simple level 1 violations without it impacting their discipline record. And so that's the system that we've used for a number of years to get students to kind of think, and we are, pushing them towards self-discipline. But beginning on Monday, February 24th, we will start pulling activities back from students. But from now until February 24th, we're in a practice run, if you will. So students will become very familiar with the process. Beginning January, right after we return from the winter break, I will start giving students sample notices. Can we go to the next slide? And it will say sample, because I want students to know how quickly an activity can be taken away from you. So these notices, you'll see something that says love notification slip. So if a student gets a love notice between January and February, when we start our active activity period, I will give them a love notification slip that lets them know how many love notices they have accumulated as of that week. It's just something to make sure you know where you are. The left side of the screen is a loss of activity notification. So this is the actual letter that we give students when they lose an activity for not being able to follow our criteria for participation. Again, I don't give very many of those out. And in January, it will just be a sample, because I want students to be familiar with the process and to know how quickly things can accumulate for you if we don't start focusing in on what we're doing. We are going to keep the main thing always in 8th grade. And so academics is always first. It's always first. So when we get down to taking the Georgia milestones and things along those lines, if you are a student that has missed your Georgia milestones test for whatever reason, and it's the same day of an activity, but you need to take the test, I'm going to require that you take the test. And then after you are done, we can go ahead and join the activities that are starting. That is it for 8th grade activities. I am ready for questions.
There was a question about the tentative schedule for final exams for science finals on Wednesday, May 21st, in Georgia, and it says Georgia Studies final on Thursday, May 22nd. We don't have 8th grade finals in milestones tested subjects. And since science and Georgia studies are milestones tested subjects, I believe you're looking at the 6th and 7th grade final exam schedule dates for science and social studies.
Yes, we test in all 4 contents in 8th grade. So our only finals will be those for connections classes.
It says that that's on their syllabus. So we will reach out to those teachers. Do we have any other questions around 8th grade end of year activities?
I'm just trying to check in the chat. Written communication to parents, families about love notifications. So there is something written that should be in the student handbook, but if your child has received a love notice, you would have received a phone call from a parent. So you can assume that if you have, from a parent, I'm sorry, you all, a teacher would contact you if they have given your child a level 1 violation. So if you haven't received that, you can assume that your child has not had a level 1 violation. When we move closer to 8th grade activities, you will receive a phone call from myself or Ms. Williams to let you know that your child may be in danger of losing an activity because of the number of love notices that they have accumulated. I hope that answers the question. Anything else? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Thank you, Ms. Wall. I will double check the 8th grade syllabus and make sure that those are updated. I think I'm done. Thank you all so much.
Dr.
Okay.
Harper, maybe remind the parents about the remind notices that you send out to make sure they're getting those or any updates that we have.
Yes, thank you. If you have not received an email from me, please reach out. The remind code is in the emails that I have been sending to parents. I do send remind messages. Really, I send a lot of remind messages when we are active in eighth grade activities to let you know we're moving, we're headed back, you know, anything that's in the moment that you need to know. So I would prefer that parents are able to get that information directly from me so that you're not wondering what is happening, what's going on with the eighth graders at this point in time. So if you haven't received an email from me at all this year, because I've sent a couple out, please send me an email at gxharper, X is in exit. There is no X in my name, so I don't know where they got that from, but it's gx as in exit Harper at atlanta.k12.ga.us. So just let me know and we will make sure to get you taken care of. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you.
All right, we are down to our last two major field trips. Sixth and eighth grade took their grade level content standards based field trips already. Both of them were taken in October, and the students and the teachers really enjoyed themselves. The eighth graders went to a battlefield and it related to their Georgia studies work, and sixth grade went to the Chattahoochee Nature Center, and so it related to STEAM and their science coursework. So these are the things that are left, and we have not determined the date for Fernbank. It will definitely be next semester. We'll give you more information as we determine which one of the exhibits would work best for our standards for science. And then parents have already made deposits for the fine arts department trip. It is going to be prior to spring break, and that's the approximate cost, and everyone has already RSVP'd to if they are doing that. Go Team, PTO, boosters, foundations, is there anything coming from the audience about any of these organizations?
I dropped the Midtown CAT meeting information, the link for the Zoom and the meeting next week. It's a little bit different setup if people are looking to attend that.
See, PTO said no, and so that's no for boosters as well. And I don't know about foundations. I don't see anything. So we're gonna move on. Our next meeting is on January 16th. And while we are wrapping up, just want to say thank you for everybody's engagement. And we wanted to do something different and end with some praise, some positive things about Howard or about your experience for this school year. And so you can either scan, or I think Ms. Moore was supposed to be putting the link in the chat. And then we're going to, Ms. Moore is putting the link in the chat.
Here I come.
And then we were going to end with seeing the positive notes as we get ready to start our week of gratitude next week. So as everyone starts putting some positive comments in, we'll start seeing them populate on the screen. And if anybody else has any questions, anybody else has any questions for general discussion as we wrap up? I'm not sure if the chat dialogue is able to be seen, so I will bring some voice to what Ms. Elderi said. She said that APS has established a parent task force for testing and assessment, and she will be sitting on a task force as a Howard Go Team member. And again, while people are leaving their anonymous comments on this Padlet, you can get off mute if you have any questions that you may have for the staff at this time.
I don't have a question. I just want to know if I'm the only 8th grade parent over here crying. I'm like, no, I'm not ready to leave middle school. Guess it's just me.
I'll jump off and just want to shout out Principal Hollis. I can't say enough. Thank you so much for your willingness to have virtual components to all in-person meetings and to recording them. It's very much appreciated by the community, and I really appreciate you bringing that in when you started.
Thank you. All righty, well, it is 11:16, so we are going to bid you adieu. Hope everyone has a great and safe break, since the next time I'll see you, you would have had 2. So see you again in January.